Hey everyone, Harris O'Malley from DrNerdLove.com. And this is Ask Dr. Nerdlove, made possible by my generous patrons at Patreon.com. And I am here today to answer your questions about love, sex, dating, and self-improvement. If you've got a short dating advice question you'd like to have answered, share it in the comments. Maybe you'll see your question featured on here. This week's question comes from Hari Narayan Khosla, who asks, how do you approach taking photos for a dating app? This is a question I really like because it ties into a lot of issues that guys have with dating apps, usually in the context of why aren't women responding to their Tinder profiles. There are a lot of guys who tend to blame that on women being too picky or having all the power, or that rather thoroughly debunked 80-20 horse. But aside from the different ways that men and women use swiping apps like Tinder, something I've talked about in a previous episode, I've linked to it in the description or you can hit the thingy, is that a lot of guys treat online dating as sort of a last-minute slop-and-go sort of situation. They bang out the profile without really thinking about it, grab a few photos from their Facebook profile, especially since that's often the only ones they have, and then they call it a day. Oh sure, they say that they're gonna go back and revise it, but just between you and me, let's be real. You never have you? The problem with this approach is twofold. The first is that it makes your profile look sloppy at best or begrudging at worst. Like you can't believe that you had to lower yourself to be here. Honestly, gentlemen, it's 2020. It's time to stop pretending you're too good to be on OKCupid. But the bigger problem is that this approach creates a very poor picture of who you are. Your dating app profile is how you are introducing yourself to literally thousands of strangers. And while some of the photos that you posted to Facebook may be good for you and your friends, they tend to make a very poor first impression on the people you're hoping to date. And as long as we're being real here, dating apps, even more profile-forward ones, are primarily a visual medium. People are gonna look at your pictures first and then check the text. So you wanna make sure that you are putting your best face forward. You want your photos, especially the first couple that your match sees, to be sharp. Now, this usually leads to a lot of folks complaining about how this means most guys are just shit out of luck and we're back to the whole 80-20 thing again. But the truth is that most of what we consider good looks is honestly all about presentation. All you have to do is look at pictures of Brad Pitt between movies. I mean, seriously, does that look like the guy who defined sexiness for decades, or the guy who tried to snake your spot at the bar at Chewy's? Take a goddamn step back, Steve. You saw me waiting for that couple to vacate their chairs. This ain't Nom, there are rules. Knowing how to take a good photo and having the right strategy for choosing what photos you want to include on your dating profile is key for online dating success. So with that in mind, here are 5 tips for taking better dating app photos. Tip number 1. This is possibly the most important. Know your cameras. Different cameras are going to give you vastly different results. A photo is a 2D representation of a 3D object transferred through a series of refractive lenses, which is part of why you look different in the mirror than you do in photographs. A photo is not a perfect replica of what you actually look like. There is always going to be some measure of distortion involved. How much distortion and precisely what is being distorted is going to depend on a number of issues, including the size of the lens, the distance from the sensor, the focal length, and the distance from the subject. The closer the subject is to the lens and to the camera, the more distorted things will be. That's why you look like a freakish mutant every time you accidentally activate the selfie cam on your smartphone when you're trying to take a photo. You weren't expecting to use it, so you're closer than you would be normally. Now, these days, most of the photos on dating apps are taken with smartphones, and honestly, it kind of shows. It's entirely understandable. We all have a photo studio in our pockets at all times, and really, the cameras are pretty good. But there is going to be a notable difference between a smartphone, a fixed lens camera, the kind that people used to carry around for party pics, and a proper DSLR. And frankly, you will get the best results and the best looking photos from a DSLR and someone who knows how to use it. This, incidentally, is why I'm actually a fan of getting a professional photographer to shoot at least a couple of pics for your dating app. There are actually photographers who specialize in taking photos for dating apps these days. That's something you may want to look into. But failing that, if you've got a friend who's a bit of a shutterbug and actually knows how to do some halfway decent portraiture or headshots, just buy him a beer or two in exchange for a couple of pics and a few candids. Tip number 2, also very, very important. Lighting can be your best friend or your worst enemy. The position and the quality of the light when you get your photo taken can make or break a photo. Depending on where the major light source is coming from, you can have a photo that makes you look like an angel or like someone who really wants to look the inside of a stranger's ribcage. Overhead lighting, for example, such as your average ceiling light or when the sun is directly above you, will make you look horrible. It will lengthen all the shadows, make your eyes look like pits, and give an extra shadow to every single flaw on your skin, leaving you with incredibly visible blemishes, pores, everything. Similarly, small, direct, harsh sources of light, such as, just to pull a random example, the light from your phone's flash, will also severely f up your pictures. It makes everything look overly bright, plasticky, too shiny, and overexposed. The quality of light matters too, and the quality is going to vary with the source. Candlelight, firelight, natural lights like that can soften things, makes them look warmer, more romantic. Fluorescent lighting, on the other hand, is goddamn Satan himself. It is almost perfectly designed to flatten everything out, wash out your skin tone, and make you look like a jaundiced corpse, while also highlighting every single flaw or blemish your skin has, and a few that you didn't even know were there. Now, in an ideal world, you want to use diffused natural light, even in yourself, and you can get this in a number of ways, such as taking photos outside during the golden hours, or when you can get indirect, diffused sunlight. Diffused light is soft, it evens everything out, and it makes all those little imperfections disappear. There are a number of different ways you can get indirect diffuse light. Natural light is the best, but there are other sources, other options if you want to research that. And a quick tip, if you want to look like a goddamn magician, if someone asks you to take their picture with their phone, say at a party or at the bar, take the picture with their phone, but use the lit screen of yours as a light. Hold their phone with one hand, hold yours up and at a slight angle, take the picture. The photos will look 1,000% better, and you will look like a genius. Tip number 3. Know your angles. Have you ever wondered why women seem to consistently be able to take better photos than men do? It's because they've taken more photos in general, which means that they know what angles are the most flattering for them. I know it's a cliche that's practically older than steam, but there actually is truth to that whole get my good side thing. Nobody's head or face is perfectly proportional, except apparently for Denzel Washington's anyway, and some people are even visibly off. The more familiar you are with your face and the way that you look in photos, the better you know which angles, directions, and poses are going to work best for you. And the best way to learn and to get familiar with what angles or poses work best is to take a tip from women and start getting comfortable with taking selfies. Lots of selfies. The more photos you have of yourself, especially the ones where you were actually in control of the camera, the more you'll learn about what angles or poses help show you in your best light. And while you're working on this and while you're learning, let me give you a little bonus tip. If you want to look better in photos in general, make sure to have some contrast between your jawline and your neck. Tilting your head down slightly and jutting your chin out just a little, as though an invisible thread were tugging at it, provides some clear distinction between your neck and your jaw, and it makes your face look stronger and more defined, even if you don't have a chin like Bruce Campbell. Tip number 4, use your photos to tell the story of your life. Everyone who's looking at your dating app profile has one question that must be answered. What would my life be like if I were dating this guy? Your photos are the answer to this question. That's why you want more than just the one photo that looks like it came from Sears Portrait Center on your Tinder profile. You want a mix of photos that illustrate the different facets of your life and your personality. That means having photos of you by yourself, but also photos of you and your friends out having fun, photos that show more of what you like to do and who you are as a person. You don't need to look like you spend all your time partying like a rock star in Vegas, or that you live your entire life on sun-drenched beaches in the Maldives, but some well-composed shots, especially ones where you're not looking directly at the camera, serve to show people a glimpse of what your life is like and what it might be like if they were dating you. Some of these can be just you by yourself, and some should be from being in the moment, when you're out, when you're having fun. And if you and your friends aren't the, hey, let's grab a photo kind of people, well, you might want to be the one who starts suggesting that everybody get together and take a picture or two to document the occasion. In fact, getting together with your buds specifically to go hang out someplace cool, and while you're there, grab some photos that you can share amongst yourselves and all of you can post on your dating apps or on your Instagram is actually a lot of fun. Which incidentally brings me to tip number 5. Show your personality. Too many people treat their dating apps like serious business. And they need to be the baddest of the bad and the coolest of the cool to get women. And the cold hard truth is, those guys are boring as shit. Don't be afraid to have some photos that are just funny or silly. Maybe you're making a weird face, maybe it's something funny you and your friends decided to do, a bunch of you wanted to mess around with a photo booth at the bar or at somebody's wedding. All of those tell your potential matches so much more about you and who you are than 100 of those pictures of you standing charismatically on a mountain, posing with the latest goddamn fish, or staring broodingly off into the middle distance. The most attractive quality a man can have is to be fun, and having a sense of humor, even whimsy in your photos, can go a long way to making the difference between someone swiping left or deciding that the two of you were a match made in heaven. So that's gonna do it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. If you are digging this, be sure to let me know in the comments, and while you're there, share some of your tips for the perfect dating app photo. Of course, if you've got a question you want answered on here, leave that in the comments as well, and who knows, maybe the question I'll answer next time will be yours. If you need a reply right away, or you want a guaranteed answer, check out my private coaching options. The priority email service may be exactly what you're looking for. Links are in the description, so go check it out. Meanwhile, follow me on Twitter at @DrNerdLove. Join my private Facebook group, NerdLove Academy, at facebook.com/groups/DrNerdLove. And as always, check out my other videos, hit the logo to subscribe, and I will see you here next time with more about love, sex, and dating. Later.